What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin and Markets. Happy Wednesday, hump day. Bitcoin is spiking a little bit. We have a few things to cover. I'm going to go over a blog post that I wrote, put out today about an hour ago. And then a couple big speakers, Putin and Powell, both spoke today. So we're going to cover those things here. And I'll take your questions and your comments, put them down below. I am live streaming on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Telegram. So if you're watching on Twitter, where most of the live views happen, jump over to YouTube and Rumble, like, comment, subscribe over there. I appreciate that. The live chat is easier to deal with as well. So, okay. Also, we have Bitcoin approaching 100K. Let's share the screen and jump into it. Let's do that first. Chart. All right. So we have the October price pattern that I've been talking about for a couple weeks at least. And actually, it probably should be moved because it seems like we're coming, like if you look into this area right in here, it looks like it could match up better if we shifted it to the left about a day. So that is what I'm going to do. And we can always undo it if we have to. But let's get it. So if we just match it like that, that matches better over here even. Run up to 100K. We did have this little spike here in the pattern. You can see run up here to 100K because it's just so juicy that we had to test it, right? And then it came back and it's really right on this pattern. I mean, man, oh man, is that close, even with this secondary test. So we'll see how this goes. And if we bring up the 20-day moving average, it is zigzag here because this is the 4-hour chart. If we go down to the daily chart, you can see it's a straight line, and yeah, just right on point with all of these fluctuations. And this is kind of what I'm expecting to happen. However, last time back in October of 2023, it took a lot longer to break out, and I don't think it's going to take all the way to Christmas. So this is showing like December 20th or 21st. I don't think it's going to take that long. I think we're going to break out sooner than that. Is it today? Well, we'll see. A lot of people have those live watch things on Twitter. But anyway, I'm live, have an alarm set. So if it's going to break it while we're here on the stream, we will be doing that. But yeah, didn't plan for this to be an actual live stream with breaking 100K. Okay, so what else did I want to take a look at today? Let's do this one. This is bitcoinandmarkets.com. That's the homepage for all of my content. You can join the free email list. You'll get blog posts like I just sent out today about endogenous money. We're going to go through that a little bit here, but you also get the free weekly newsletter. If you become a paid member, you can join the price forecast competition every month. So December's is out. The deadline is the end of the day on the 5th. So tomorrow, by the end of the day, guys, get all of your entries in. If you become a $5 member, you can join that as well. You have a chance at winning $20 in sats over the Lightning Network and getting your name on the Hall of Fame. Let's go to that right now. Hall of Fame. You see, we've been doing this since 2019. All of our profits, you get a little wizard by your name, and then you get on our list. So if that looks like fun, you think you're good at forecasting the Bitcoin price, you can jump in there and do that. Okay, back. But I want to take a look at this post here that I just put out. Endogenous money. So what is endogenous money? I have a degree in economics. I've heard of this, and I knew there was a way to describe how I talk about credit-based money. But it never came up. Okay. And I actually was talking with Grok going back and forth with Grok a little bit on my macro thesis post. I'm trying to get a series of posts out on my overall macro thesis. And Grok told me that, hey, this is endogenous money. And so I was like, oh yeah, let me get deeper into that. And so this post kind of came out of this idea of endogenous money, and it's also explains Jeff Schneider, Eurodollar University, um, and I kind of take my theory kind of goes down the Jeff Schneider road, but all the way to Bitcoin and all the way to understanding evolution of money, not stopping with the current system. Okay, so the money that we have today is not the best possible money. Bitcoin isn't even the best possible money. And oh my God, that is heretical. That's blasphemy. I'm going to get struck down right now. But no, Bitcoin isn't the best possible money. It's the best possible money under certain circumstances. Okay. Endogenous money or Eurodollar or credit based money, however you want to label it, is the best possible money under other circumstances. Okay. And as the environment in the global economy changes over the decades, over the centuries, over the millennia, we're going to use different things as money. So I think that Bitcoin is the next evolution of money. That's what we're going to be using from roughly now until maybe 500 years. Who knows how long it goes in the Bitcoin era. But then there will be a shift back to credit based money of some sort when the environment shifts again and we go back to an era of high trust from low trust. Then we will be using endogenous money. So that is kind of the thrust of this post. Let's go through it here a little bit. As a Bitcoin, I've long pushed back against the oversimplified idea that central banks like the Federal Reserve are solely responsible for printing money. Instead, I've argued that money creation today occurs primarily through lending, driven by demand within a high trust system of banks and institutions. This system, rooted in post-World War II economic order, has worked for decades, but now appears increasingly fragile as global trust erodes. And let me just make sure everything is on the up and up. I'm not muted on Telegram. Had a sinking feeling, but okay. Guys, put your questions, comments down below. Tell me where you disagree with me or where you agree with me on this type of topic about money. But okay, so this post is a brief introduction to the concept of endogenous money and an exploration of how it fits into my broader macro thesis. Okay, so let's compare endogenous and how would you say that? Exogenous money. The overwhelming popular theory, sorry, God, I can't read. The overwhelmingly popular theory of money creation is that of exogenous money. Most people have been taught that the Federal Reserve or central banks print money, directly controlling the money supply through mechanisms like open market operations, quantitative easing, or setting reserve requirements. This view simplifies monetary policy into a top-down process. So from the central bank dictates down. They act as the primary drivers of inflation or deflation by regulating the flow of money into the economy. I think we can all agree that that is what most people think today about the way money works, but it doesn't. It's actually an endogenous. Endogenous money flips this narrative on its head. Instead of central banks being primary actors, this theory argues that money is created from the bottom up, driven by lending activities of commercial banks. And if you push these people up here that claim the Federal Reserve is in control, and you ask them, but isn't money created when a bank makes a loan? They will say yes. If they know their stuff. I mean, if they're legit, they will say, yes, money is created when a commercial bank makes a loan. But they won't continue with that line of thought. They just forget about that and go right back to exogenous money. So when a bank issues a loan, it simultaneously creates a matching deposit. So this is why we do not have fiat money. We have credit-based money. Because if you have fiat money, you don't have to create anything simultaneously or a matching deposit and a matching asset and liability on a balance sheet. You just print the money. It's just assets. But with credit-based money, which is not fiat, is they have two entries, a matching entry, a loan and a deposit, expanding, but this expands the money supply. Central banks in this framework don't dictate money creation, but accommodate it, trying to maintain liquidity and stability within the banking system. And then I have this image kind of comparing exogenous and endogenous money. So, sources of money creation, this is the kind of normie, or I would say consensus view. Central banks inject money into the economy via monetary policy tools. But reality, it's money is created by commercial banks through lending and credit demand. Role of central bank actively controls the money supply. Okay. Endogenous, the reality is facilitates liquidity and accommodates the banking system's needs for reserves, which there are no real needs for reserves. Driver of money supply, determined by central bank policies and decisions. Or what's really happening is it's determined by demand for loans and economic activity. This is important because it goes into the interest rate fallacy, right? Um, it's it's the economic activity and the demand for loans that is the driver of the money supply. Flexibility of supply, viewed as rigid and directly managed by the central authorities, but in reality, dynamic and adjusts based on lending activity and credit demand. So, as credit creation slows down dynamically in the economy, you have you can go negative net credit creation. Okay, and that's a bad thing. You have more loans being paid off than new loans being made, so you have net negative money supply growth, and that's deflation. And that's not the type of deflation people talk about. So people talk about inflation and prices being the same thing. And even those people that are, know enough to say, no, inflation is actually the money supply, they'll still talk about price declines as deflation. But no, deflation is a decline in the money supply. And that is not a good atmosphere to be in. Okay. You don't want declining money supply. Stand by.
Charlie said to tell you to unload my clothes.
Sorry about that. Okay, where was I? Let's just continue down here. Public perception. Central banks are seen as the primary creators and controllers of money, but in reality, money creation is less visible, tied to banking operations and lending cycles. And I would say a big part of this is shadow banking, but I didn't put that in here. So a big part is the shadow banking system where we don't even know what's going on between private balance sheets across the world. Okay, across the world in large businesses and banks, central banks, even maybe. We don't know what's going on exactly. So it's kind of a very opaque. And what we can see on the outside is interest rates. And interest rates will show us what is kind of going on in the shadows, but we can't observe it directly. Inflation control, managed by controlling the money supply and interest rates. They know they don't do this because you can't really count the money. Managed, what's really happening is that the inflation is managed indirectly through credit conditions and banking oversight. And lastly, the policy focus emphasizes central bank actions to stabilize inflation and growth, but in reality, um, the policy focus for endogenous money would be highlighting credit cycles, banking regulation, and systemic trust, credibility of the central bank, and stuff like that. Also, the credibility of international institutions, which we'll get into now a little bit lower. Let me see if there's any comments at this point. Put your comments down below. Good evening, Dex. What's going on? Dex Invictus back with us. Let me see if there's any comments on Telegram. Okay, not seeing any. Let's get back into it. All right, so evolution of money. This kind of came up because when I'm writing about my macro thesis, I'm calling it evolutionary monetary theory. And the idea of the type of money we have now is not the type of money we've always had, right? It's evolved to this way. But people don't go the next step and say, "What it's going to evolve to a new thing." And how does that happen? Well, some people will say it's dictated by the government. Okay. But it's not, because they didn't dictate to get to the Eurodollar system that we have now. It slowly evolved because of the Triffin dilemma and other things to solve those problems, and it grew into what we have today. Um, in the past, yes, they have set a peg for the type of money, but they didn't pick necessarily gold or silver or whatever that was. The market chose it, and the market forced the government into selecting those things as the money. And also just trade. So the market was using gold and silver. So the banks had to use gold and silver. So the governments had to use gold and silver, right? So the market is in charge, and it pushes and evolves towards different monies. And it's evolved into this endogenous form of money that we have right now, but that it's not a universal trait of all money. Okay. Obviously, people will, that's one of the kind of sticking points, I think, when people will talk about money. Um, they'll explain how the money is today, but and they'll act as if that is how money should always be. Or you can go like Jeff Schneider. It's like money, yes, has evolved this far, but this is the best possible form, kind of like a Panglossian view that this is the best possible form of money. And what we have to do for the next money is make it even better, but with the same sort of endogenous type of traits. But that's not how evolution works. Evolution can go forward and backward and bounce around as climate changes, as environment changes. It's not a straight arrow, right? So anyway, this is endogenous money is how it works today, but that's not a universal trait of all money. It has been selected for by the market within a specific historical and economic context. The current system of credit-based money creation evolved in the post-World War II era, shaped by the establishment of high-trust global order led by the United States. This period saw the rise of robust international institutions like the UN, the WTO, IMF, and World Bank, along with the dollar's dominance as the global reserve currency. And then after the Cold War ended, that really got kicked into high gear, right? These structures created the stability and trust necessary for banks to confidently hold debt as an asset and create money through credit. Moreover, during this period, high debt was highly productive, driving what is arguably the greatest flowering of prosperity in human history. So, when everyone says that fiat money is so bad, or not fiat money, but the current money that we have is so bad, it has so many evils. Like I just reacted to Robert Breedlove against Peter Schiff, and they would both agree with that the current money is so horrible for human flourishing. But then you just say, what has happened since World War II? Since we've been evolving into this credit-based money, into the system that we have today. It's the greatest flowering of human prosperity in human history. I don't know how you could argue with that and say that what we have today is so terrible. No, the market chose it because it allowed the world to flourish like that, but within a specific historical and economic context. This system of endogenous money works as long as there is broad confidence in the institutions that underpin it and highly productive uses of debt. And there are highly productive uses of debt. That was not very well said there. Both of these pillars are under fire. So there needs to be broad confidence in the institutions and highly productive uses of debt. Both of these pillars are under fire. The world is saturated with debt, and that debt is becoming less productive. Look at the great and wonderful and fantastic Belt and Road Initiative. We were told for years and years, do you guys remember that? Years and years, that China was going to pass the United States because look at the Belt and Road. They're so brilliant, those guys. Those commies are so brilliant. They're going to know exactly where to put all this money, and to lend it out and build these ports and railroads that the white man and the Europeans and the Americans, they are stingy and they're racist or whatever. They don't want, they're trying to hold down and exploit the global south. Don't you know? They're trying to exploit the global south. That's why the global south didn't get anywhere. But China's different. China's great and wonderful and fantastic. And this Belt and Road Initiative is going to bring all this new funding to all of these infrastructure projects around the world. Well, what the hell happened to that? They all failed. They're not paying for themselves. There is no longer a massive amount of productive uses of credit out there, productive uses of this debt. And Belt and Road is a perfect example of this. Okay. It became so bad that China had to completely change course. They no longer do that. They no longer lend money. Belt and Road is dead, basically, at least in the iteration where they're going around and building ports and railroads and doing other things for all these other countries because they didn't pay for themselves. All right. This is a clear example of the state of the productivity of debt on the international scale. So this endogenous money, it's run into this productivity of debt. Okay, diminishing marginal returns on debt. When growth begins to deteriorate like this, nations and people naturally start viewing the world as a more zero-sum game, which is currently manifesting itself as a wave of nationalistic and conservative feelings sweeping the world. Trust in global policy initiatives, liberal globalist governments, international institutions, and the banking system is eroding under the weight of geopolitical tensions, diminishing marginal returns on debt, systemic debt levels, and the demographic crisis. As this trust breaks down, so does the viability of the endogenous money model. Okay. So the endogenous money model grew out of the post-World War II era. Now, as that era has come to an end, debt is no longer positive. Debt is no longer very productive. People are turning back into this nationalistic conservative feeling, zero-sum game. Tariffs are going up all over the place. So this model is no longer viable. So it needs to evolve. Okay. Money creation tied to and it's not like Jeff Schneider would say, we need to find out a way to expand the money supply. The reason why this is breaking down is because the money supply isn't expanding and we're in a dollar shortage. No, we're in a dollar shortage because that's the reverse side of elasticity. If you have high elasticity when times are good, you're going to have negative elasticity as well on the downside. Uh, you can't add more credit now because of the productivity problem. So that is not an option. You have to change the form of money. Money creation tied to bank lending depends on a reliable, high trust environment to function. Without it, the system risks devolving into stagnation and instability, forcing a reversion to more transparent and trust minimized forms of money. So, what about trust minimized Bitcoin? The evolution of Bitcoin backed money represents a fundamental change in the nature of money itself. Endogenous money, which can expand under proper conditions, has a critical weakness. It contracts under adverse conditions. When demand shifts from growth and expansion to preservation, the limitations of endogenous money become glaringly obvious. Bitcoin is theoretically the optimal value preservation tool. Okay. I should have highlighted this sentence. Bitcoin is theoretically the optimal value preservation tool. We don't know if it will ultimately end up dominating the world. There could be some bug nobody knows about. There could be some other unforeseen things. We don't know if it will ultimately end up dominating, but every single sign so far has been positive. Bitcoin's fixed supply, permissionless nature, and ability to settle value over communications channels make it the ultimate trust minimized asset for global money. Okay, so again, it's theoretically the optimal value preservation tool, but we don't know if it will actually work. However, we do know that this current system is changing or is going to change. It no longer functions properly. The world will go to something. Absent Bitcoin, it would probably go back to gold. But now that we have Bitcoin, which is the optimal tool, we will most likely go to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is neither endogenous or exogenous money. It inherently limits the ability of both banks to create money through lending and governments to create money through fiat. While bank-driven money creation will not vanish completely or overnight, the role of credit in backing the economy, its privileged place on balance sheets, and as the economic structural supports will all shrink relative to the harder forms of money. So it's going to be a process. It's going to start replacing Bitcoin use is going to start replacing this credit-based use all over the economy. Okay. We already hear loud voices from BRICS nations declaring that the dollar in its current form no longer works for them. These countries openly discuss a gold-backed currency, but they're just one step away from realizing that Bitcoin solves these same problems and does so more efficiently than gold. The evolution of money is ongoing. I am convinced that the high trust, highly productive foundations that enabled endogenous money to endure are rapidly changing. This shift is creating a new environment that favors sound money adoption, a money well suited to a low trust, insecure economic order. So that is the post from today. I will be doing it with the AI voice, putting it out here on YouTube as a standalone video, but I want to go through that because now we're going to get into these videos. And before we do that, let's check out if there's any comments. Let's see, 154 people watching, probably most over on Twitter. Jump over to YouTube and Rumble. Those links are in my pinned tweet, so you can find that. It's much easier to do the live chat, and I like the interaction with you guys, so put your comments down below. All right. So I wanted to read through that post because I was working on that, and then this thing hits from Powell. Okay. Very interesting timing. And here he says that Bitcoin is like gold. There's not a threat to the dollar. It's like gold. But let me play it. And actually, I have to make sure the volume is up for you guys. And go ahead and play.
Or in the Federal Reserve itself, in terms of the system. What do you think of that idea?
I don't think that's how people think about it. I mean, it's so, people use Bitcoin as a speculative asset, right? It's like gold. It's just like gold, only it's virtual. It's digital. People are not using it as a form of payment or as a store of value. It's highly volatile. It's not a competitor for the dollar. It's really a competitor for gold. That's really how I think of it.
All right. So what did the dollar used to be backed by? The dollar used to be backed by gold. So if Bitcoin is a competitor to gold, it's obvious that Bitcoin is a competitor to a backing. If we go back to sound money and back the dollar, Bitcoin is the obvious choice there. Stand by 1 second. I had to yell at my kids. They're being loud in the other room. All right, back. All right. Also, another clip that came out today was Putin. And let me just set this up a little bit. So I talked there in the piece about the BRICS and how they've been talking about gold-backed currency. And, the idea is that the current form of the dollar is not functioning for the global economy. And so it has to change. Well, the BRICS have been saying this for a long time. The current form of the dollar is not working for the BRICS. They openly talk about evolving the money, and they openly talk about even evolving the money back towards sound money, not just making a new stable coin with different features or something like that. So they're talking about this, and they're very, very close to their realization if they're not there already. But this is what Putin had to say. I think it does have subtitles or something here.
Биткоин кто может запретить? Никто. А использование других электронных средств расчета кто может запретить? Никто, потому что это новые технологии. И чего бы ни было, чего бы ни происходило с долларом, эти инструменты так или иначе будут развиваться, потому что все будут стремиться к тому, чтобы снижать издержки и повышать надежность. Биткоин кто может запретить?
So pretty interesting. He knows who can ban Bitcoin. Nobody. and he's saying it out loud. Powell is out there saying that Bitcoin is like gold. It's better than gold. It's digital gold. He didn't say it's better than gold, but he did say it's digital gold, which implies that it's better than gold. And so major shifts are happening, and it could happen a lot faster than we all anticipate. Like a lot of us think, oh, it's going to be another 10 or 20 years before we make any real headway. Well, everybody's talking about Bitcoin strategic reserve. Many countries are talking about it now. Many state governments are talking about it. Companies like the Microsoft vote that's supposed to be happening tomorrow, I think. All of these things are happening right now, and they could snowball within a year. I'm not saying that we'd back the dollar with Bitcoin within a year, but a year from now, that will be the discussion. Should we do this? We bought all this Bitcoin. Now we hold all this Bitcoin. Should we back even 20% of the dollar with Bitcoin? At the end of the gold standard, it was 40% backed at $35 an ounce. Maybe they just do 40% backing with Bitcoin at a certain amount, right? So this Overton window is getting smashed open wide. Okay. 163 people watching. Put your comments down below.
Использование других
I'm live streaming on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Telegram. Okay, we got a few comments in here. From fiat to BTC is a paradigm shift. People don't adapt voluntarily. Yes, they do. People will adopt the most saleable asset. And in that piece, I talked about how it's the global atmosphere, the global economic atmosphere is switching from growth and expansion that we had since World War II, and why we've had the greatest flowering of human prosperity with credit expansion and stuff. That is now shifting because of all these multiple problems I pointed out. And it's shifting towards preservation. Okay. Zero-sum game. You want to preserve what you have. This is the idea. And it's not like going to be explicit or conscious or like a campaign slogan. It might be a campaign slogan, but it's going to be a overall shifting of the global mood away from expansion and growth towards preservation. And in that scenario, people are going to pick the right money for that. Brian says, dollars will be printed until they're worthless and not accepted for bread. Okay, that's the exogenous view here. That's not how the system works today. Dollars are not printed like that. Dollars are printed in the process of making a loan. That's what the whole piece is about. That's what most of my theory revolves around. So no, dollars, yes, they will continue with this credit-based system until we have something else, right? And if there is a situation, like, people say, oh, Bitcoin can go to zero. And then somebody pipes up and says, well, Bitcoin can't go to zero because I'll buy all of them at 1 penny. Okay. So the dollar can't go to zero because they will back it by something before it goes to zero, before it gets that bad. And right now, I mean, if the dollar is to lose like that and completely just crash in value, other currencies will crash first. The yen will have to go to zero. The yuan will have to go to zero. The euro will have to go to zero. The British pound will have to go to zero, all before the dollar goes to zero. So in that time, what's going to happen? All those people are going to be flooding into US dollar denominated assets, and the dollar is going to maintain its value. So no, it's not going to be printed. It will be printed, continue to be printed, because the debt is less and less productive. So you need to print more and more of it in the process of making a loan. But the debt burden rises exponentially. So the debt burden rises almost faster than you can print it, right? And so it's not runaway inflation. It's not runaway prices. It is runaway inflation, but it's not runaway prices, because the debt burden is sucking money back out of the economy. But you can't get out of that cycle because unless you change the money. and it would be voluntary. You had to voluntarily change the money, and people will slowly do that. Brian also says normies can't mentally process this. Yes, I agree. Dex Invictus, exciting times. Brian again, Operation ICE 9 will convert your bank account to a digital currency. Don't know what ICE 9 is. Like the stream. What's up, Dex? Brian, it's a small percentage that recognize and adapt. Yes, but what I'm saying here is that it's a general trend towards preservation mindset. Okay, just look at the transition from globalism towards conservatism and nationalism. It's slowly moving that way, and right now I think it's at the point where it's passing that 50% mark. Okay, so it's going from maybe the true conservatives were like, or relatively hardcore conservatives were 25%. Over the last 10 years, maybe even, well, when was Brexit? 2016. So yeah, about 10 years, maybe 15 years, it's grown from 25 to 51% now around the world on average. And it's going to continue growing. But that is going from a expansionist globalist mindset towards a conservative mindset. And sound money is a conservative mindset. All right. So it's the same sort of thing with money. It's going to creep into people's understandings that they're going to go more towards preservation than towards expansion and growth. And not only the normies, but, with Pareto distribution. So 20 is, and it's hyper Pareto distribution. It's like 5% of people and businesses own 95% of all the capital, something like that. It's pretty steep Pareto distribution. And so you only have to have that 5%, you only have to convince that 5% to act a certain way, or to do a certain thing, or to adopt a certain technology or whatever. And if 95% of the capital adopts Bitcoin, I mean, it doesn't really matter what the other 5% do. And they don't think for themselves. They'll just follow. Others must be led involuntarily. They'll go where the money is. We are shifting from a debt-based system to a commodity-based system. Yes, that is true. And I mean, it's like a lot of people, Brian, thanks for making all the comments. A lot of people think that when Bitcoin's adopted, it's going to be like the promised land, right? And we're going to have this great flowering of productivity and stuff. I don't think so. The reason why we're going to be adopting Bitcoin is because of the opposite of that. We're adopting Bitcoin because of a preservation mindset. And and with demographics too. Demographics kind of is the thing that will ultimately require a change. Like, credit cannot continue to expand if the population is shrinking 2 or 3% a year. Just doesn't work. And so it's going to force that. But so a Bitcoin economy is not going to be instantly great. It's actually adoption is going to be the result of getting worse, the economy getting worse, and becoming more isolationist, more nationalistic, probably more violent. There's going to be more wars and stuff in the near term. And then after maybe 20 years or so, maybe we can enter a new era that's relatively more peaceful and prosperous. But right off the bat, we're not going to adopt Bitcoin and just go to the promised land. Hyperinflation is the side effect. No, we can't hyperinflate the dollar because the debt burden rises as quickly, or more quickly even, than the expansion of credit. So we can't actually have hyperinflation. So that's what I would say. In this form of money, we cannot have hyperinflation. If we had real fiat money, like that was unbacked, right now we have money that's backed by credit. But if we had real fiat money, that's when you get hyperinflation. Okay, so when a bank or a government, when they print money, their balance sheet, assets, liabilities, they only add assets. then you can get hyperinflation. But we don't have that system today. We have a system where when you add an asset, you add a offsetting liability. And so you cannot have hyperinflation in that situation. You can have relatively high inflation, like 9, 10%, or even maybe 20%. But hyperinflation is a specific has a specific definition. It has to be 50% a month. And that's impossible with the system that we have. We could have 10% a year, and places like, say, Argentina or Brazil or stuff that had recent histories of very high inflation. It wasn't actually hyperinflation, but it was very high inflation. Hyperinflation would be like Venezuela. Okay, that's hyperinflation. They actually monetized the debt directly, and they would have the central bank giving the government money, not offset by debt. And we don't have that system. It's actually forbidden for the central bank to buy debt directly from the government. It has to go through the primary dealers, and that means it's tied to the actual economy. It's not monetization of the debt. Okay, JRL. If you hide US dollars under your mattress, here, hold on. I'm going to go back to this post. If you hide US dollars under your mattress, it's worth less 10 years later. If you hide BTC under your mattress, it's worth more in 10 years. Correct. Correct. Fiat currency goes to zero every time it's been used. So, yes, no, it hasn't. First off, there has been no global reserve currency that has hyperinflated. Okay. So there's also like plenty of currencies around that have been around for a long time, like the British pound. How old is that currency? I mean, you'd say 500 years or so. I don't know exactly, but no, there's plenty of currencies today that have not gone to zero. So I would argue against that. I mean, the dollar being a perfect example, but also fiat, like, we don't have fiat money today. We have credit-based money. And most people that use this, like I'm talking like Breedlove or maybe some other type of content producers in Bitcoin or the gold bug side of the house or anything really, they're talking, when they talk about fiat money, they don't quite understand what they're talking about because fiat money is very specific. It's money that is created out of a government process. So like, it wouldn't be used if the government didn't make it used, but we don't have that today. We have credit-based money. People use it because when you print that money, it has the demand built into it. So on the Peter Schiff and Robert Breedlove debate, they were talking about this kind of topic, and they're saying the only reason for the US dollar demand is due to taxes. Okay. But that's not the case. That is not the case, because every dollar is actually a dollar of what? It's a dollar of debt. And what do you have to do to debt? You have to pay it off. So every dollar is actually a self-contained unit of demand for the dollar. You demand the dollar to pay off the debt that you took out to create that dollar. Okay, so that is what is backing what the demand for the dollar comes from. It's not from fiat. It's not because we are threatened that we have to pay taxes. Because if it was just because we had to pay taxes, you could hold something else the whole time until the day before you pay taxes or the morning before you pay the taxes. Then you quickly switch your assets over to dollars and pay your taxes with the minimum amount, and that's all you'd have to do. But that's not why we hold dollars. We hold dollars because there's demand for the dollar to repay the dollar. Okay, JRL. The bigger issue with BTC is how decentralized it is. If mining is completely monopolized, the network has lost its security. People need to focus on true decentralization. That's good. Some good points there. Yes, but I would also have you consider that Bitcoin has dynamic decentralization. So during periods where it feels threatened, it will get more decentralized. And we kind of saw this during the scaling debate where more nodes were brought on, and it became a big thing to run your own node. And like I had 5 nodes running, or 6 nodes, whatever, just myself, because I wanted, on all my old laptops, I was like, have a node, because I wanted to, it was like a vote for what software I was running. And so it became more decentralized that way. Also, there will be competitive bidding for mining. So the US will want it, Norway will want some, Ethiopia will want some, China will want some, Russia will want some. There'll be competitive global competition for mining, and that will naturally decentralize. And if there is like periods of stress in the geopolitical order, that will become more decentralized. So there's a dynamic decentralization. Another thing is like pools. Okay. So if 1 or 2 pools, I'm not sure what the makeup is today. I think it's like around 1 or 2 pools. But let's say one pool like Ghash back in the day got up to 50%. They would, we had dynamic decentralization. So people left Ghash and went to other pools. We could have the same sort of thing today. So the decentralization will increase as Bitcoin feels threatened. And I'm anthropomorphizing Bitcoin here because it is kind of a life form. And so as it feels threatened, it will have dynamic decentralization. But those are good points. People are tired. Oh, Brian says, peace out. All right, man. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all the comments. Thrango says, people are tired of paying for everyone else, whether that is other countries or the fringes of society. People feel like they are suffering for the good of everybody else, and that they only go on for so long before people revolt. Yes, very true. Very true. People are tired of, also the unequal treatment under the law of certain things. So 2 people will do this similar crime, and one person will be let out and get a government check, an Obama phone, and a free hotel room with free food, and the other one will go to prison, right? And so, and it's always along the same lines. But that type of idea is going away, because wokeism and cultural Marxism and to a high degree identity politics are going away. And that is partly because of this rise in nationalism and conservatism that's sweeping the world. So yeah, I agree. People are fed up. And I think that is quickly in the grand scheme of things, it might take another complete election cycle or 2 election cycles to really see the total flip. But I think that is happening everywhere in the world, basically. Not every single country, but you'll see it, like you see it down in Argentina, in South America. You see it in Europe. You see it in the United States. You can see it. I guess Moody is kind of a populist leader. Japan is a populist government. So like you see it rising all around the world. All right, let's see. Any other comments? Let me check Telegram. Great comments today, guys. All right. I did not hear my alarm go off, but let's take a look at price before we bounce out of here. So we're still fitting this pattern. Currently 98,600. Will we break it today? I don't know. My prediction from Monday's report was I thought this week we were going to break 100,000. We will see if that comes to pass or not. But It's a matter of when, not if. All right. So check more comments one more time. 199 people watching. What's up, guys? Live streaming on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, and Telegram. You can find all those links in my pinned tweet. And if you go to YouTube and Rumble, like, comment, subscribe. It's easy for the live stream, live chat over there to interact. Check out the Telegram because we're in there all day long posting the news about Bitcoin, going back and forth. But all right. I will end with this then. Bitcoinandmarkets.com. Check it out. Join the free email list. And have a good rest of your evening, guys. See you on Friday. Bye.